When Vijay returned to his home in Kundrathur, Chennai, he expected to be greeted by the familiar sounds of his family. He anticipated the playful noise of his 7-year-old son, Ajay, and his 4-year-old daughter, Karunika. Instead, a heavy silence filled the house. The door was locked from the inside. His wife, Abirami, wasn't answering her phone. Forcing the door open, he was met with a scene that would not only shatter his world but send shockwaves of horror across the entire nation. It was an act so fundamentally unnatural that it remains impossible to fully comprehend. This is the story of how a mother became the killer of her own children. This is the chilling case of Abirami, a young mother who committed the ultimate betrayal. It is a chronicle of the sacred bond between a mother and her children being deliberately and horrifically severed. The victims were the most vulnerable imaginable, her own son and daughter, poisoned by the very hands that were supposed to protect them. The crime itself is a tragedy, but the motive behind it reveals a disturbing story of infidelity, obsession, and a chilling descent into violence. What could possibly drive a mother to see her own children as obstacles that needed to be eliminated? To understand this unthinkable act, we must first look at a time when the facade of normalcy was still intact, in a small family that, from the outside, looked just like any other. In the bustling Chennai suburb of Kundrathur, Vijay and Abirami were building a life. They had been married for 8 years, a union that began as a love match. Vijay, an employee at a private bank, worked hard to provide for his family. Their rented home was filled with the energy of their 2 young children, 7-year-old Ajay and 4-year-old Karunika. To neighbors and acquaintances, they were an ordinary family. Abirami, a woman in her late 20s, was a homemaker, the central figure in her children's daily lives. Her world, it seemed, revolved around her husband and children. Just before the tragedy, the family had even celebrated Vijay's birthday, a memory that would become eternally tainted by the horror that followed. But beneath this surface of domestic peace, there were cracks. Vijay had previously discovered that Abirami was involved in an affair and confronted her. After his pleas, she had agreed to end the relationship and return to the family home, promising a fresh start. For a time, it might have seemed like the crisis was averted. This was just a temporary calm. The betrayal had not been abandoned. It had simply gone underground, where it would fester and mutate into something far more deadly. The source of the family's destruction was born of modern temptation. Near their home was a biryani shop where a man named Sundaram worked. An acquaintance was made, numbers were exchanged, and a connection sparked between him and Abirami. What began as a casual flirtation soon spiraled into a consuming extramarital affair. For 2 months, their relationship deepened, conducted largely in the secretive world of text messages and clandestine calls. Technology became a gateway for Abirami to lead a double life. While she went about her duties as a wife and mother, a significant part of her energy was poured into this hidden romance. Sundaram represented an escape, a promise of a different life, free from her current responsibilities. The affair became her central preoccupation. The children, Ajay and Karunika, who should have been the center of her universe, slowly faded into the periphery. The home that was once a sanctuary became, in her mind, a prison. This deep and rapid descent into infidelity was a profound betrayal of her husband's trust, especially after he had already forgiven her once. But Abirami and Sundaram's plans went far beyond deception. They came to a horrifying conclusion. For Abirami to be truly free, her old life couldn't simply be left behind. It had to be destroyed. The transition from infidelity to homicidal intent marks a terrifying psychological leap. For Abirami, this leap was made when she and Sundaram decided that her husband and children were hindrances that stood in the way of their happiness. This cold, calculating word appears in police reports and reveals the complete dehumanization of her own family in her mind. Her children were no longer living extensions of herself, they were problems to be solved. The couple allegedly decided to elope and start a new life together, perhaps in Nagercoil or Kerala. They knew that a woman leaving her husband and two young children would be pursued. So, a more permanent solution was devised. The plan was to kill not just the children, but her husband Vijay as well. The night of the crime, Abirami put her plan into motion. She mixed a poisonous substance into glasses of milk for her children. Ajay and Karunika trusted their mother implicitly. When she handed them their nightly milk, they would have taken it without a second thought. But on this night, that gesture of care was transformed into an act of ultimate betrayal. The milk, a symbol of life, became a vessel for death. Her husband, Vijay, was also meant to die that night. The poisoned food was ready for him, too. His life was saved by a twist of fate. He was held up at the office with month-end work and called to say he wouldn't be home. That routine phone call was his salvation. While he was working, his wife was at home, carrying out the destruction of their family. When she was certain her grim task was complete, she locked the door to the home that was now a tomb, and she fled. On Saturday morning, Vijay returned home from his shift. He found the house locked and his wife's scooter missing. He called her phone, but it was switched off. A growing sense of panic led him to break down the door. The sight that greeted him was every parent's worst nightmare. His two children, Ajay and Karunika, were lying lifeless, with foam frothing from their mouths. His world ended in that instant. While Vijay was discovering the horrific scene, Abirami was already making her escape. She rode her scooter to the Coimbatore bus terminus, a major transit hub in Chennai, and abandoned it. She then boarded a bus and headed south towards Nagercoil, where she planned to meet Sundaram. The police investigation began immediately. With two dead children and a missing mother, Abirami was the prime suspect. The story of the affair quickly emerged, with Vijay telling police about her relationship with Sundaram. The police swiftly detained Sundaram, who allegedly confessed to the affair and the couple's plan to elope, telling officers that Abirami had killed the children because she saw them as a hindrance. The manhunt for Abirami was now a top priority. Her ultimate downfall came from her own desperate need to contact her lover. After reaching Nagercoil, she destroyed her SIM card to avoid being traced. Then, she approached a traffic policeman, borrowed his phone, and called Sundaram, unaware that he was already in police custody. That call was her fatal mistake. Police now knew her location and used Sundaram to lure her to a meeting spot, where they promptly arrested her. The chase was over. Abirami and Sundaram were brought back to Chennai and remanded to judicial custody. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Post-mortem examinations confirmed that Ajay and Karunika had been poisoned. Sundaram's confession implicated them both in a conspiracy, and Abirami's flight from the scene was a clear indicator of her guilt. She was charged with the murder of her two children and the attempted murder of her husband. In the years since the 2018 arrests, the final judgment and specific sentences for Abirami and Sundaram have not been widely publicized. What is clear is that the justice system was methodically processing one of the most unnatural crimes the city had ever seen. But for the father, Vijay, no verdict could ever undo the horror. Vijay was invited to meet with superstar actor Rajinikanth, who offered him words of comfort in his time of immense grief, a small gesture of humanity in the face of unspeakable cruelty. The case of Abirami is a journey into the darkest corners of the human heart. It is a story that dismantles our most fundamental beliefs about the sanctity of motherhood. A mother, the source of life, became a bringer of death to her own flesh and blood. She chose a fleeting romance over the lives of the two small children who depended on her for everything. The chronological account paints a clear picture of what happened, but it can never truly answer the deepest question. Why? How did she silence the most powerful instinct a parent has, the instinct to protect? We are left with a chilling portrait of a woman so consumed by her own desires that she was willing to sacrifice her children on the altar of a new life. This case serves as a terrifying reminder that the most monstrous acts are not always committed by strangers. Sometimes, the monster is the one you trust the most.